Okay, here we go. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time of day it is. I hope it's good to be where you are because it is really good to be here today. My name is Baltimore Facts, and this is part two of Boopolis. Yeah, okay, and so here we are. We're going to continue with the fifth creation of the Duke of Gloucester and Prince Henry. All right, and then we go from 1726 all the way to the fifth creation in 1928. Of Prince Henry, who was King George V's son, one of his sons, not heir to the throne. That's his brother Edward the Eighth. But so I wanted to read a little bit about this guy, and he has a pretty interesting story. And I wasn't thinking much about this aspect of it until I came to this portion. And I'm going to skip ahead on his life a little bit because there's some stuff I want to touch back with later. So they have this bit of here in his Wikipedia about the abdication of Edward the Eighth. And so it talks about his role in the abdication of Edward the Eighth's throne, right? And so King George V dies, and less than a year later, Edward, who becomes King George VI, abdicates to marry this divorcee, Wallis Simpson, who is from Baltimore. And now, a couple of months ago, Miss Havisham from Miss Havisham's channel wrote to me and asked me if I knew this story of Wallis Simpson, as she was from Baltimore, and her role in the abdication of the throne of George the Sixth. And I wasn't aware of the story, and she wanted to know if I would touch on it in Mud City sometime, and I said absolutely. She's going to come to me. This is a great story. And here she is, because the thing about it is, this is now the second time in as many weeks that the name Wallis has come up for me. When Mary and I were in the Maryland Historical Society, I came and looking through the files of Douglas H. Thomas Sr., the banker, the architect's father. I came across this article, which was paying tribute to Severn Teakle Wallis. And so now we have the River Severn, which Annapolis is on, and Gloucester is on, and the name Wallis, and it's going to get a little bit crazier here. And so I was like, okay, it looks like I'm going to have to be paying attention to this Wallis family soon. And now here we are. Here she is. And so now now I need to take a closer look at Wallis Simpson. So let's go. Let's just take a closer look at Wallis Simpson briefly. All right. And here she is. And I'm just going to scroll ahead a bit to her early life. All right. And there she is as a young lady. In 1930, this is the year she married. I believe the year she married King George, or Prince Edward the Eighth, rather. All right. She was an only child. She was born in a country club in Pennsylvania where the wealthy citizens of Baltimore would summer, I guess, before Ocean City became a thing, I guess. But her father was Teakle Wallis Warfield, like Severn Teakle Wallis, who's, and again, he's going to be playing a part probably in Baltimore as I look more closely at these people. But he was a very prominent lawyer, Severn Teakle Wallis. Right? And their father was a flour merchant, described as one of the best known and personally one of the most popular citizens of Baltimore, because they're all popular. And he ran for mayor, but it doesn't say if he won. Right? And her mother was Alice Montagu, or Alice Warfield. See, again, there's some confusion as to whether or not she was conceived out of wedlock. Right? There's some contention there. But anyway, her father dies when she's like a year old. And so they have to go live with her father's brother, Solomon Davies Warfield, who was postmaster of Baltimore and later president of the Continental Trust Company and Seaboard Airline Railway. Because what prominent man in the 19th century in Baltimore wasn't the president of some bank or trust company or a railway line? Right? It's unbelievable. Right? So she lives in the lap of luxury, to say the least. And she goes to private schools where she hobnobs with the DuPont heiresses and this Mary Kirk, who's an heiress of the Kirk Silverware. I don't know, whatever that means, right? But at a young age, she marries this Earl Winfield Spencer Jr., who is a Navy aviator, who she meets in Pensacola, Florida, visiting her cousin. Right, and so they marry, and they have a tempestuous marriage. Right, he's an alcoholic who may or may not have beaten her, and there's lots of separations, but he's thought of well enough to be given a commanding post for the first training base in San Diego, the Naval Air Station North Island at Coronado. All right, and it's interesting that when she was first courting Earl Winfield Spencer, she saw two planes crash and developed an irreconcilable fear of flying. She never flew. Interesting that she married a pilot, right? So they stay in San Diego for a couple of years, and in a weird coincidence, Edward actually visits San Diego while she's there, though allegedly they did not meet. But again, their relationship is filled with ups and downs, and she travels a lot, diplomatically or militarily, with her husband, and they go to China, where she stays with Catherine and Herman Rogers, who remain long-term friends of hers. But while there, Wallis meets Count Galeazzo Ciano, later Mussolini's son-in-law and foreign minister, and had an affair with him and became pregnant, leading to a botched abortion that left her infertile. Now, the rumor was widespread but never substantiated, and Ciano's wife, Ida Mussolini, denies it, and the existence of an official China dossier detailing the supposedly sexual criminal exploits of Wallis in China is denied by historians and biographers. Of course, considering where she ends up, I mean, they have to deny this kind of thing, especially with the events about to explode on the world stage very soon. But interesting, though, she never does have children, so there could be some credence to this story. Right? And it's interesting that, according to one socialite, Wallis only mastered one phrase in Chinese, and that was, "Boy, pass me the champagne." Her divorce was finalized in 1927 from Spencer, but while she was still married with him, she starts an affair with this guy, and after the divorce, within a year, she marries him, and his name is Ernest Aldridge Simpson, where she gets the Wallis Simpson from. And he's an interesting character. He has this sort of, Orson Welles, Howard Hughesy kind of look. And what's interesting about him is that he's American-born in New York, right? Attends Harvard, but he becomes commissioned by the British Army and serves as captain in the Coldstream Guards during World War I. And after his father was a British citizen of Jewish background whose original surname was Solomon. Now, it's interesting that the person who took care of Wallis Simpson when she was young, her father's brother's name was, his first name was Solomon. All right? But interesting that he chooses to become a naturalized Brit. He gives up his American citizenship and he becomes a British citizen. But the marriage with Wallis Simpson is, again, not a very good match, and they both have affairs on each other. And in the end, he actually ends up marrying that Mary Kirk, I think her name was, from the Kirk Silverware, a friend of Wallis's. So again, lots of things like that. So it was his second marriage as well, by the way. And they were divorced on the 3rd of May, 1937. But before they could get divorced, she meets Prince Edward, right? And she first meets him through this woman here, this Thelma Lady Furness, who was a mistress of Edward. And as soon as Lady Furness could turn her back, Wallis strikes. And so, right, she goes to New York, and Wallis allegedly becomes the prince's mistress. Although it's denied, the staff see them in bed together, catch them. But by the end of 1934, Edward was irretrievably besotted with Wallis. She had worked some mojo on him, all right? And according to Edward's official biographer, he became slavishly dependent on her, which is very interesting. This is like beyond Yoko Ono, beyond breaking up the Beatles kind of stuff, right? And they flaunt their relationship, even while she's still married to Simpson. They flaunt the relationship. And that doesn't go over so well. And there's a lot to talk about what could happen. There's a constitutional crisis, or whatever I think they call it, where Parliament is going to suspend itself if he, in fact, goes through with this marriage because it's, you're not supposed to marry a divorced woman whose divorced husband's or divorced husband is still alive. And she had one living divorced husband and was still actively married to Spencer while they were engaged in this affair openly. But she does end up getting a divorce from him. And then in January of 36, George V dies, and Edward ascends the throne as King Edward the Eighth. But he's still having this affair with Wallis, and it's not good. And no one likes what's going on in the royal family, and the pop, and the general population of England does not like what's going on at all because, again, of this taboo of being with a married woman who's not yet divorced. And so she gets her divorce, and he abdicates the throne, saying that he does not know how he could effectively rule the kingdom if he cannot have the woman he loves by his side, which is a very romantic thing. It's super sweet, right? But again, abdicating the throne of England. At the time, in the 1930s, I'm sure that it was still quite a big empire. I don't know. But it's a really big deal because he is, the king by rights. He's firstborn. And it boggles my mind. It's like, how could British intelligence not take care of this problem? How was Wallis Simpson not suicided or somehow otherwise gotten rid of, But it was so bad at one point that she does flee and live in France for a while he's king. But Wallis gets the divorce and they become married. He abdicates and they become married, and he is created Duke of Windsor, the House Windsor, which is the present house. Queen Elizabeth II. It's from the House Windsor, right? And so he then, although estranged essentially from the family, he is a diplomat for the most part, and he does do diplomatic things. They talk about in here that, he is Royal Highness, but she cannot be. But in private, in her estate, with her servants, she makes her servants call her Royal Highness. And in 1937, they go to Nazi Germany and have a meeting with Adolf Hitler. And here is the rightful heir, the rightful king of England, with his wife, greeting Adolf Hitler. Now, how is it she could have an affair with Mussolini's son-in-law? And here she is with the rightful king of England, shaking Adolf Hitler's hand. And of course, they talk about that perhaps they were spies, but I don't know. Like I said, it's just if it's his birthright to be king, this is a diplomatic mission all the way in my regards. And because, if you think that World War II is as they tell us in history books and movies, it really wasn't that. And so, photographs like this just, bolster the case that there's more to the story. All right. And so I was like, well, who is this woman who has affairs with Mussolini's foreign minister, shaking hands with Adolf Hitler, getting kings to abdicate their throne? So I wanted to find out more about her and her family. So now what I did was I came to this Genie page. I wanted to look at her family here, and they list her mother as Alice Warfield here, but remember it was Alice Montagu before. All right, and again, the Teakle Wallis name. Why didn't that come up? All right, Sally Howard Montagu. Now, Howard is also a very important name in Baltimore history. And so now, it was the name Montagu was starting to resonate with me, and I wasn't sure why. And it's because when I read through Prince Harry's, I read through this whole thing. He was married. He married a woman named Alice Montagu, and now that's Wallis's mother, Alice Montagu, changed to Warfield. Right, and so I look at her. Right, her father was this William Latan Montagu, and so what I decided to do was see how far back I could trace this Montague family, right, through the paternally, right? And since it was giving me a lot of problems, I chose to do it this way. But it's just, I love the name Montague. It makes me think of Romeo and Juliet. And I was thinking, where are the Capulets? Where's Tybalt? He's coming, right? But when I follow this all the way back, I find this guy, William Montagu, second Baron Montagu, right? Um, Birth date circa 1285. And now, who was this guy? And so he was the son of William Montagu, second Baron of Baron of Baltimore, second Baron Montagu, right? But he was a loyal servant of King Edward III. King Edward III, whose son was the first Duke of Gloucester. So I can tie, just from the street name in Annapolis, I can tie Wallis Simpson, the woman who got the king to abdicate the throne, and who had affairs with Mussolini's son-in-law, and shook hands with Adolf Hitler, all the way back to this Thomas, all the way back to Richard III, or rather this guy, this William Montagu, who's part of the House Plantagenet. I have to believe. Do they say? They don't put his house in here, do they? Crazy. Which goes to the kings of Jerusalem. Again, no coincidence here. And so when you try, this is where, like, Baltimore and Baltimore are going to go. Baltimore especially is going to be about this era here, right? And so I just thought that was amazing, that how roaming around Annapolis for about 30 minutes or so and following the story through can lead all the way to Wallis Simpson and tracing her family back to Richard III, and the House Plantagenet, which controlled the Jerusalem in the First Crusade. Unbelievable, right? You just can't make that stuff up. You can't do it. And so, I thought that was kind of fun. And so to wrap it all up, I just want to show a couple of fun things here. So that was last Friday that I did the Annapolis tour. And, that evening we went down to this place in Baltimore, which is now called South Pointe. This is older, right? 2017 was the copyright in Annapolis, right? So I can't think that this is much more recent than that. And so they call this South Pointe now, and it's all renovated, and they have like a little outdoor bar area here, and you can come down here in the summertime and watch the sunsets. And so we thought it was a gorgeous night, and so we thought we would do that. But while we were there, a big storm came through. We were on the outskirts of it, so we got some winds and some good thunder and lightning and a little bit of rain, but it wasn't disastrous, and it certainly didn't spoil the evening. Because here we go. I got this nice little rainbow afterwards. And it's funny, whenever storms come through now, I often think of, one of the incarnations of Baal is this Baal Hadad. I didn't bring up his page, but he was the god of weather and storms and thunder and so on and so forth. So whenever I hear thunder or lightning now, it's like, oh, Baal is angry. The angry Baal. And so yeah, that was lovely. And then, as the evening went on, I noticed this nice cloud formation with the sun behind it. And so I took a couple pictures of this formation as it sort of disperses and changes. And I wanted to showcase this a little bit. I'm going to get a little Baltimore flat here. You can see the sun behind the cloud, definitely. And the way the light is illuminating the sides and underneath these clouds back here, definitely makes me think of a local sun. How could light be coming in on this sideways angle and so forth if the light source is, billions of miles away, right? Give me a break. And here's the sun peeking through underneath. This is that same formation. All right. Oh, we'll get rid of this guy. Hold on. I don't know who that guy is. And here you can kind of see clouds behind the sun, right? I mean, that's certainly what it looks like to me. And I did blow this one up a little bit. And I don't know if the clouds are dispersing behind the sun here. Let's see what happens if I blow this up. Not quite as clear, but there appears to be action behind the sun here. I don't know. It was just a gorgeous sunset, to say the least. But the capper was this last picture, right? It's this one here. Now, I'm going to blow this up a little bit. I don't know about you, and I don't know what your thoughts are on the sky, and if any of you know about aerials and things like that. My mind is very open as to what goes on in our skies, because again, I don't know anything. But I didn't see this at the time, but when I took a look at the photo, I'll be darned if this isn't a big demon guy here. Over the sun, after the storm. Who is it? It's Baal. Here he is, and he's giving me the finger. And he could be hermaphroditic, because this could be a left breast, right? I don't know. The shape of this makes me think of some of the fertility idols from the Neolithic era, right? And he kind of looks a little bit like Oogie Boogie, too, from Nightmare Before Christmas. But dang, I mean, I know you can see, make the most of, with a creative imagination, you can come up with all kinds of things. But I'll be darned if that doesn't look like a demon shape giving me the finger. And even better is that this aspect of the cloud kind of looks like a large cat head, like a lion's head. This could be part of the mane here, perhaps. I don't know, but just the basic shape of it has a bit of a lion head shape to me. And of course, the lion is one of the main symbols for Baal. Pretty crazy, right? And so that just kind of blew me away, right? And so I don't know, I'm just amazed by this picture, and that is definitely Baal giving me the finger. And then one last fun thing that happened was, and I have to bring up for the tunnel vision episode that I did on June 11th, about 2 weeks after that, I guess, a friend of mine on Facebook who knows about my channel sent me a Facebook article from the Baltimore Sun about the tunnels under Baltimore. And so I had to share it with Mary. And here it is. This is what I shared with Mary, right? Look, it said the Baltimore Sun responding to my tunnel video, right? Right? Are there really tunnels under Federal Hill, right? And so I got a big kick out of that, The Baltimore Sun is watching my channel. But even better than that is that, so this was, what was the date that we had on this? This was the 27th. My friend sent it to me on the 26th. Right? So roughly 2 weeks after, right? And then on July 1st, the Baltimore Sun does this. Front page. Underneath Federal Hill, the secret beneath. So, I don't know, there's no coincidences in this, that they're making a big story out of this. And again, I don't have that much reach, but, I do tag Baltimore, and so it's not inconceivable that some writer or editor of the Baltimore Sun follows my channel just for shits and for S's and giggles. And but one thing I wanted to focus in on really quick was the name. And I'm not going to say his name, but the writer of the article. Oh, come on. They're not going to let me get up any closer than that. I guess they're not going to let me get up any closer. But if you look, it's CC33. Unbelievable. So anyway, so that's the story of, how the crazy ways that, what 30 minutes can get you, right? And how possibly the Baltimore Sun is a follower of Baltimore Fats. So anyway, until the next one, cheers, guys. Okay, so there were a couple of interesting things gematria-wise with Wallis Simpson that I picked up from Miss Havisham and our correspondence over Wallis Simpson here. And so I just wanted to share them with you. And if you guys aren't watching Miss Havisham's channel, you really should. She will make your life a little more awesome. But to start out, the first thing is the day she married Prince Edward was June 6th. 3 6s is 666, which is kind of interesting, right? And then when we go back, they were married for 36 years, which is another 666 if you wanted to look at it that way, 3 6s. The year of her birth and the year of her death are the same numbers, just transposed, which is really interesting. And she had 3 husbands, and not only that, her mother, Alice Warfield, which I had a little bit of a blip in there, sorry about that, guys, she also had 3 husbands. So that's 6 men, 2 women, 3. You get your 666s there too. Right? So I thought that was really fun, and I wanted to include that. I'm sorry I left that out of the first take. But anyway, so that's that. Until the next one. Cheers, guys.